Jubilee spending and tourism are expected to boost the economy, but it seems estimates might have been too optimistic. More than 30 million pilgrims are set to flock to Rome. Nearly 1 month in, 500,000 visitors have already passed through the holy door of St. Peter's Basilica. It's too early to assess the economic impact of the Jubilee, as Professor Celata tells us. Celata, who works at La Sapienza University in Rome, believes forecasts are overrated.
D'altronde è tipico di tutti i grandi eventi quello di cercare, come dire, all'inizio delle stime sul numero di visitatori o sull'impatto economico che tendono a essere sistematicamente sovrastimate. In termini economici l'effetto strutturale che noi osserviamo all'indomani del Giubileo del 2000, che per certi versi è stato simile a quello attuale dal punto di vista dell'utilizzo che ne ha fatto la città, è stato esattamente quello di creare occupazione anche in maniera stabile, ma in settori, ripeto, poveri. E dall'altro lato aumentare il costo delle abitazioni.
The trend is confirmed by a recent study on the possible effects of tourist consumption during the Holy Year.
Abbiamo registrato già nel 2023 un aumento del 13% rispetto al 2022 del prezzo dei canoni di affitto, e c'è una proiezione invece rispetto a quest'anno di un aumento del 17% addirittura, e questo si innesta in una situazione abitativa che è già complicata. A Roma è scarsa la disponibilità di immobili in affitto.
Although prices are set to increase, it's not yet a sold-out situation. While the availability of properties for long-term rentals is limited, as many are used as holiday homes, most of them remain empty. Alessandro Gallardo is both the owner of a bed and breakfast in Rome and an estate agent. He knows the market well.
I pellegrini non sono soliti andare nelle case vacanze, ma cercano di sfruttare luoghi dove possono stare insieme con altri pellegrini e spendere molto meno. Il turismo delle persone che non vogliono stare con tanta gente ma godersi la città così com'è, hanno pensato di andare l'anno prossimo o magari fra 2 anni venire a Roma. Questo gennaio del 2025, il primo mese del Giubileo, le prenotazioni sono diminuite rispetto all'anno scorso e anche agli anni passati tra il 60 e il 75%.
But the question for Rome, a city that has long struggled with over-tourism and poor local governance, is whether the 2025 Jubilee will be remembered as a missed opportunity for renewal for the Italian capital. Giorgia Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico threatened with reciprocal measures if Ukraine does not resume gas transit from Russia. Speaking at a press conference in Brussels after talks with European Commission officials, Fico said Slovakia could cut off humanitarian aid to Ukraine, stop its emergency electricity supplies, and reduce or withdraw benefits for Ukrainian refugees.
Druhým dýchom hovorím veľmi jasne. Ak sa tento problém nevyrieši, vláda Slovenskej republiky príjme v krátkom čase tvrdé recipročné opatrenia. Áno, niekto môže povedať, že to je kruté, čo teraz hovorím, ale kruté je aj to, čo robí Zelenský voči nám a čo robí voči Európskej únie. Je to poškodzujúce, je to kruté.
A pipeline that runs through Ukraine used to be one of the 4 networks through which Russian gas flowed to the European Union. Kyiv decided to halt this gas supply as a transit deal signed before the start of the war expired at the end of 2024. In a post on social media platform X, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the decision to halt the transit means Moscow will lose what he says is one of its most profitable and geographically accessible markets.
Financing its rearmament is a difficult balance for the EU. On the one hand, public finances are in the red. On the other hand, the Russian threat and the prospect of a US isolationist retreat are looming over Europe. In the wake of the war in Ukraine, different solutions are on the table to finance the continent's defense, such as buying weapons together. However, the specific needs of member states in terms of armaments sometimes hinder this form of cooperation.
The starting point needs to be what do we need to spend money on together to increase efficiency, become more cost effective, reduce the cost of what we're doing. I mean, talk about hypersonic missiles, air defense, cyber, satellite. These are all areas where if we work together, drone warfare also, if we work together in these areas, we will really get more bang for the buck.
European common debt through Eurobonds could help finance the rearmament, but supporters of fiscal orthodoxy like Germany remain reluctant to borrow jointly.
Always has to be shorter. The idea behind more EU joint borrowing is the fact that quite a few member states have problems with their national finances, and here this would be in a way then to use the collective power of the EU as a borrower to make it in fact cheaper to borrow money. We have done that in other cases.
Some, like Emmanuel Macron, call for buying European in the name of strategic autonomy. Others prefer to place orders elsewhere to reduce costs or delivery times.
C'est une question de sécurité aussi, de réfléchir qu'est-ce qu'on achète en européen, puisque bien sûr, ce qu'on fabrique en Europe, on est prioritaire pour le consommer. Ce qui est fabriqué ailleurs qu'en Europe, on n'est pas prioritaire pour le consommer. On a beau signer un contrat, si les conditions changent, s'il se passe quelque chose dans l'Indo-Pacifique ou à Taïwan, les Européens ne seront pas prioritaires. Donc en fait, il faut assurer ses arrières et donc c'est pas qu'il ne faudrait acheter que européen, je pense que personne n'a ça en tête, mais il faut revaloriser peut-être la part de ce qui est européen dans ce qu'on achète.
The EU's role in this matter has been and still is limited. Defense remains to be an exclusive competence of the member states.
Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, was arrested after leading a rally in the capital, Caracas. Her aides say she was violently intercepted by President Nicolas Maduro's forces as she left the rally on a motorcycle convoy with her security team. She was later released and in a post on social media platform X informed supporters that she's in a safe place. Machado had called on supporters to take to the streets on Thursday, a day before Maduro is sworn in for a third term. The opposition leader has organized regular protests since elections on the 28th of July, which they say was rigged. The opposition had routinely stated that they've provided credible evidence that was verified by international observers, which indicated their win. Their findings estimated that the opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez crushed Maduro by a 2-to-1 margin. Machado had been in hiding for months as the Maduro regime intensified its crackdown on dissent. Machado and Gonzalez say they will continue to protest against this injustice until the will of the Venezuelan people is delivered.
Lebanese Parliament has elected Army Commander Joseph Aoun as president, breaking a 2-year deadlock. Aoun's emergence came after Parliament held the 2 rounds of voting session to elect the country's president on Thursday. In the first round, the Lebanese Army Commander secured 71 out of 128 votes and fell short of the 2/3 majority required for an outright win. The vote, which saw all 128 members of the legislature present, took place amid chaotic scenes early in the session, with lawmakers shouting over one another. Aoun is considered to be the preferred candidate of Lebanon's key allies, the United States and Saudi Arabia. He now faces a daunting task of governing an overwhelmed nation. First, by maintaining the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah and working to revive an ailing economy that has decimated the country's currency and wiped out the savings of many Lebanese.
3 people were killed after police opened fire and used tear gas on a crowd of supporters of Venancio Mondlane in the center of Maputo. The crowd was celebrating the opposition leader's return to Mozambique following his self-imposed exile. Mondlane fled the country in October when unrest broke out after Mozambique's ruling party candidate won the presidential election. Earlier in the day, the opposition leader was greeted by his supporters at the airport, where he made a symbolic inauguration.
The late U.S. President Jimmy Carter was given a state funeral at the Washington National Cathedral in the U.S. Capitol. Multiple foreign dignitaries were present at the final honoring of the 39th president, including Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Current and former presidents were also in attendance, including President-elect Donald Trump. The incoming U.S. president was seated in the second row alongside Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary, George W. Bush and his wife, and Barack Obama. Obama and Trump shared a rare moment as the pair talked, joked, and laughed together for several minutes before the start of the service. U.S. President Joe Biden, who's set to leave office in less than 2 weeks, delivered the eulogy. Biden shared an emotional message highlighting the deep friendship he and Carter shared for almost 6 decades. The U.S. president praised Carter for his character and unwavering principles, and celebrated his accomplishments, which he says were heavily discounted.
Many think he was from a bygone era, but in reality, he saw well into the future. A white Southern Baptist who led on civil rights, a decorated Navy veteran who brokered peace, a brilliant nuclear engineer who led on nuclear nonproliferation, a hardworking farmer who championed conservation and clean energy, and a president who redefined the relationship with a vice president.
Biden ended the message on a personal note, sharing that he misses Carter, but takes solace in knowing that he'll be reunited with his wife of 77 years, Rosalind. Jimmy Carter's casket was once again loaded on a plane headed to his hometown of Plains, Georgia. The late president, who died aged 100 on the 29th of December, will be given a private funeral with friends and family. He'll then be buried beside his wife in the small town they were born, grew up, lived most of their lives, and died.